Coming up next on American Black Journal, we'll devote the entire show to a discussion with Detroit Emergency Manager Kevyn Orr. We'll talk about his decision to take the city into bankruptcy, the lease of Belle Isle, and the role he expects incoming Mayor Mike Duggan to have in Detroit's operations. We have a lot to talk about. You don't want to miss this very important conversation, so stay tuned.
Eric wants to know.
What does DTE Energy do to make Michigan a better place?
Rodney can tell you.
We do a lot, like youth education and employment programs. We fund over 500 jobs for youth all across the state. Many are neighborhood improvement projects just like this.
It's incredible.
Wow, that is fantastic. So this is like a paint by number, this whole thing, right? Communities are such great places, aren't they?
They sure are.
Love the siding. Measure once, cut twice, right? DTE Energy. Know your own power.
When I grow up,
I want to be an architectural engineer.
A registered nurse.
In the law enforcement.
a computer scientist.
A successful person.
Give Michigan's children the chance to aim high with quality early education.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. It's been 8 months since Kevyn Orr was appointed Detroit's emergency manager by Governor Snyder and given the task of fixing a financially ailing city. In his efforts to restructure Detroit, Orr has made some difficult and controversial decisions that impact city employees, retirees, creditors, and residents. Recently, he made the historic move of filing a Chapter 9 bankruptcy petition, making Detroit the largest American city ever to file for bankruptcy. Joining me now is Detroit Emergency Manager Kevyn Orr. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Okay, so 8 months in Detroit.
Right.
You look around, I live here, 700,000 other people live here.
Right.
What should give me hope that you being here now is going to change my reality in Detroit?
Okay, well I think that's a good question. Well, first and foremost, as you know, we have a new police chief, and actually crime in the central city, CBD, Central Business District, is coming down, as well as citywide, although there have been certain instances that certainly are very unfortunate. But we do have new statistical evidence that is coming down, as well as new predictive policing forces, so that's a good thing. We have the new lighting going up in 2 demonstration projects in the city, so we can see what lights will go like.
Right.
We've stood up the Land Bank Authority and have done that in conjunction with MISTA at the state level, so we can now get into some blighting. We've funded the Public Lighting Authority for those demonstration projects. We've also negotiated and selected 2 solid waste contractors, so we can outsource our solid waste to upgrade the removal, for instance, weekly removals. Unfortunately, you're probably not, because there are capital spends, negotiations, have to buy new trucks. You probably won't see that until the spring, actually see it, but we're on our way in that regard. And probably more importantly, we've set the table about the status of the city's real finances.
The finances, sure.
Right, and we've removed some practices that we used to do in the past. So there have been some significant changes that we hope will give you hope, but have also been very substantive even now.
Right, but you have to hear the criticisms, as I do,
Sure.
that nothing's different, right?
Right.
And in some cases, things seem worse.
Right.
We've had very high-profile violent incidents, murders and things, even though, as you point out, crime's going down. Do you worry that that you're losing the faith of the people who live here, or maybe?
You know, not really. I mean, I hear from a lot of people, and most people that I encounter recognize that despite the anecdotal evidence, the day that the shootout at the barbershop happened, for instance,
right.
in Washington, D.C., there was a quadruple murder in my hometown. I mean, crime is significant
Sure.
around the country, and you can look on the city pages of any newspaper and see, you know, specific instances that are quite troubling, and a tragedy for those families that are affected, that lose somebody out of turn. But in terms of overall, I'd like to think that people are a little bit more thoughtful than that. And recognize that one, it's taken us 60 years to get here. Sure. We're not going to turn it around in 7.5 months.
Really?
2,
I'm shocked.
Shocked. And you're winning, sir. Thank you. But also that it's going to take us managing expectations means that we're really trying to work very hard. 3, we have the opportunity now that we've turned the corner on the initial work, which was getting a true picture of the condition of the city's finances, to focus really on operations now. You're going to see that.
Right. So the restructuring of city government is one of the 3 sort of prongs that
Right.
you're working on: bankruptcy,
Right.
restructuring, managing city government. what we've seen so far is a lot of consultants come
Right,
in at
sure.
very high prices, which, there's no such thing as cheap consultants. And
Right.
if there were, you wouldn't want them. But
Right.
do you feel like the work they're doing is worth the money, A, and then B, Cranes this week had a story about
right.
how most of what you're talking about is stuff that that Mayor Bing put forth in
Right.
2011.
Right.
Do you worry that the appearance of the consultants making all this money while they aren't coming up necessarily with things that we haven't heard before, does that again erode confidence?
No, and there are two questions there, and let me address it. One, I think that to get at 60 years of neglect and delay, you're going to have to pay for it. And frankly, it's a snapshot in the history of the city for 18 months. Our consultants are working at a discount. All of them have given a discount off their hourly rates, some 10, some 15%. In addition, we have a fee examiner that's looking at our consultant fees in the bankruptcy court, and there's a 15% holdback against that. So I'd hope people would recognize this isn't necessarily comforting to the average person who sees the numbers, but none of our consultants are being paid at full retail rates.
Okay.
And frankly, they're making a sacrifice just from a cash flow perspective for themselves to help the city. So I know it's a lot of money, but it's taken us a long time to get here. We got to deal with a lot of work. We got to deal with a lot of work. And put it in perspective, and frankly, the numbers I've seen relative to the workload that we're getting, in the Lehman case, for instance, one law firm was paid $10 million a month.
Right.
So every year, that's $120 million. Our entire budget is much less than that. Okay. So let's just keep that in mind, first of all. Number two, with regard to the work that we're actually pursuing, that's by design. If you recall, the Detroit Reform Memorandum of Understanding was entered in November 2012.
The first consent agreement.
Well, no, the first consent agreement was April 2012.
April, sure.
And then in November, because we weren't complying with that, in November 2012, the MOU was entered into, which specified the hiring of the consultants that are here, except for Jones Day, which I recused myself from, so that was the only one added. But it also specified that those consultants were to come up with a plan for Detroit reform starting in the beginning of 2012. So yes, that certainly happened under Mayor Bing's administration, but that plan was under development before I assumed office in March 2013.
Right.
So if we're getting to that, that was part of the plan. So what you're seeing is an outcome that was by design.
Okay. So, and again, if I'm an average Detroiter,
right.
I'm looking at this and thinking, when am I going to see this change my reality in Detroit? When am I going to see the work that these consultants are doing matter on my block?
Right. Well, for average Detroiter, you're going to see the work that the city's doing, first of all, in dealing with the balance sheet. And you don't really see that because that's an intangible to the average resident. But shedding the debt, the crushing debt that we has, staunches the flow. And so you don't see that. To the average resident, you have seen, in some cases, some blight demonstration projects in Blightmore, as well as some lighting projects, as well as some new cars that are coming on the street, as well as some new ambulances coming on the street. You have seen some changes. The reality is the change that the average citizen is going to see is not going to be immediate and dramatic. It's going to be incremental and over time. But what you will see is a city that starts to perform city services at a level that's acceptable. Okay, I'm not saying stellar, but that should be aspiration of some time.
Is that the goal here, to get it to acceptable? I mean, should people be cautious about expecting that we will get great city services?
We had a meeting with our federal partners a couple of weeks ago, you recall, here at Wayne State. And one of the things I think the Attorney General said was, in terms of crime, he's speaking crime, but overall, that he said, that stuck out in my mind. He said, you have to be very careful, because they've done this several times in other cities, in managing expectations that you don't round the corner on this immediately. In my city, Washington, D.C., we're now seeing tremendous opportunities, but it's taken a long time. It's taken a decade to turn that corner. And what my job is to set the table and put in place the necessary tools so that the city has the opportunity to achieve those objectives and see some immediate ones, some immediate deliverables, lighting, blight, police, fire, EMTs. We recently reached an agreement with our emergency medical technicians union, which provides some work rules and some labor peace. So you're going to see that. We're going to relieve some debt, here again an intangible with the BAML settlement. So there are certain things, but in terms of people seeing an immediate change, that's going to take a little time. That's to be expected.
We also learned this week that the state is going to cap at $5 million its contribution to that restructuring. That took a lot of Detroiters by surprise, and I think, again, feeds into this idea that maybe we're out here on our own. They're not really here helping us as much as they could be?
Well, I'd be very careful with that. I mean, my understanding is that was made pretty explicit before I got here in 2012. And I've always said, since I've been here, we have to solve our own problems. There's going to be no one, the cavalry's not coming riding across the horizon to save us, because we created these problems to some degree. But the other thing about that is we have the capacity to solve our problems. The state, for instance, the Belle Isle lease, is giving us a significant amount of assistance, maybe not directly in the way people would like to see, because the state has to worry about the entire state and its own capacity, but in very real and tangible ways with significant spends that people should understand is very helpful.
I want to talk about the new mayor. Set to take office January 1. I think a lot of people have a question about what is he going to do, what's his job, and what responsibilities is he going to have. That really is up to you to a large degree, right?
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, I'm very excited about the new mayor. We've had a couple of meetings. I thought they've been very fruitful and very encouraging. I do have an obligation to, the statute 436 says at least 4 times that the mayor and the city council stand down unless certain roles specifically delegated, and I very much want to reach a level of confidence, and I think it's my obligation to find roles that are appropriate for a mayor-elect to undertake. And as I said, those conversations make me very encouraged. But I have to be, the only thing that's really limiting me in this sense is we're still in a restructuring process. And I have to make sure that the primary goal is to make sure I leave this mayor and city council with the best budget and ledger that a mayor has had in probably 50 years.
Right.
Okay.
But I think this mayor is anxious to get in there and get his hands dirty. I mean, he's a manager, he's a doer. I think a lot of Detroiters are anxious to see their elected leadership step up more. So, I mean, can you give us an idea of some of the things that he might be doing by January?
Well, that is to be expected, and I think that's appropriate, frankly. But here again, I hope everyone understands, we're still in receivership. I'm a receiver 2 times over. I have Chapter 9 responsibilities, I have certain rights and obligations I have to discharge in that, and I'm a receiver under state statute 436, and I have to make sure that I can discharge my duties so that the financial emergency can be over, and the mayor will have the balance of his term, the vast majority of his term, with a better balance sheet to go forward. But that being said, speak directly to your point. Mayor Dugan has convinced me that he is enthusiastic. Mayor-elect Dugan. We still have a mayor. Mayor-elect Dugan has convinced me that he's very enthusiastic and he has some great ideas. And we're going to sit down again tomorrow and try to start parsing through more specificity on what those deals are. I mean, we have some, the revenue drivers, tax collection, assessments, account payables, account receivables, purchasing, finance. Those are things that are sort of very closely associated with the restructuring effort. So I have to be very careful. I may want to keep those. But there are other things having to do with lighting, blight that we might be able to work on jointly. And then there's some things, DDOT, I mean, our bus service, IT is a huge driver. HR underpins the entire delivery of services for the city.
And those are a mess.
Those need some attention. Those need some attention. Those are things that I think really drive the restructuring beyond me that we have to have a serious conversation about, and I think they're appropriate because those are things that are legacies that are going to be here after hopefully I get a chance to leave next year.
I've heard a couple people say that the model here would be that the new mayor would be essentially the COO while you're acting as the CEO. Is that an appropriate way to see that?
I think the new mayor is going to be a little bit more than a COO. Okay. I'd like to think of him as a partner. And I'm like I said, he's a proven commodity. He's a change agent, and also classmate. But I have a great deal of confidence that we're going to be able to work it out. But that model plus is how I would call it. That is a little bit more than that.
Okay. Let's talk about the bankruptcy. We've wrapped up the trial to determine whether Detroit is eligible, and we're waiting for the judge to rule. Talk about what that means one way or another. I mean, what does it mean for us to get into that process, and what does it mean if we don't get in? Okay,
I'm going to stay at 40,000 feet on this one because it is under consideration by the judge, and he had 109 objections, an 8-day trial. He's got a lot of work that he's doing, so I'm going to be respectful of the process and also the obligation that he has. But let's just talk, generally about eligibility in a municipal bankruptcy. Has to be a determination that 4 factors more or less have been met. That one, We're insolvent, and frankly, during that process, nobody debated.
No
that
one's
we're
challenged
Nobody,
that at all.
nobody's challenged
Right.
that we can't pay our bills on time. We're insolvent. Another component is that we desire to effectuate a plan of adjustment. At the end, nobody's taken issue with that.
Right.
The real issue, crux of the trial, was that some parties have alleged we didn't negotiate in good faith. We think that's inaccurate. We did. In fact, at some point during the trial, certain parties said we wouldn't have cut a deal with you anyway. So that sort of speaks to good faith on our
Right.
part. And the other part is whether or not that was, it would have been unlikely anyway. So I'm going to defer to the court
Sure.
in having to make those determinations, but I think we've made the showing, and if we do, I liken it to a very long trip. We packed our bag, we have our trip tick, we filled the cart with gas, but we're not out of the driveway yet.
Right.
And an eligibility determination is a good, strong shove down the road. Now, the other side of your question was, what happens if we don't get
We
that?
don't get in.
That would be highly problematic. I mean, we've stopped our borrowings. We've exposed how much debt we have. We can't operate as we did before, borrowing from the pension funds, deferring contributions, borrowing from the capital markets. From 2000 to 2010, we ran average deficits of city budget of $100 million. We have accumulated operating deficit of $384 billion.
Sure.
Unbeknownst from the 2005 and 2006 borrowings, we borrowed $250 million in 2005 and another $40 million in 2006. In the span of 2 years, we borrowed almost $2 billion, and we can't pay it back.
Right.
So that would mean some severe, very severe outcomes for the city. I frankly shudder to think about it.
Do you feel like that would mean massive service cuts, really pulling back from neighborhoods that already are pretty hard hit?
I don't know if we could cut enough to make up the shortfall. I mean, the deficit spending that we've done, what is clear is we can't pay our debts. We don't have the cash.
Right.
Okay, so we can't pay it. It's $1 billion budget, and we have $18 billion in debt. We can't cut city services more. I mean, it would be, spectral. I mean, the city would be a ghost of what it is.
Right.
So I, frankly, other than sort of a severe degradation of city services and opportunities, I can't even think about it, Steve.
Right.
You'd have to have basically a salvage plan in place.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. The other part of what you're doing is running the city,
Right, right.
and I've heard a lot of people say that's not going that well. That the
Right,
city's internal infrastructure doesn't work that well,
Right,
and
right.
you're not having a lot of success moving that along. When does that change?
Well, I've heard those criticisms, but I've also said, we are paying our bills on time on a 30-day net basis. We have reduced our response rates, and in fact, have lowered crime. We're trying to get our buses running on time. We had a little kerfuffle a few weeks ago with the bus, but they're actually
Right.
trying to get some parts in place to get drivers going. We are dealing with remediation and blight, so there's some criticisms, but the facts are a little different. Now, that being said, there is a great deal of inertia that we've got to put through, and there are some functions, IT for instance. We met at the behest of the federals. They pulled together a number of different chief technology officers, chief information officers, came in from New Orleans, Boston, Kansas City, I think, Chicago, and it was fascinating. Let me give you an example. In New Orleans, just from technology fixes, the ability to perform functions of government more efficiently.
Right.
On a $500 million budget, roughly half our size, in the span of 10 months, they drove costs down by $70 million. Okay? So if you scale that to us, you can put back into the city. If you scale that to us, it's not that they're exactly on parity, but you scale that to us, that's $140 million.
Right.
That's more than our entire reinvestment budget for a year.
Right.
Now, we have to find the money to do the IT fix,
sure.
because we tried to do that. We were trying to do it here with a provider for benefits enrollment, for instance, and we had to go to the state and get a contractor through MERS to assist us with that. So some of that is certainly a function of cost, and part of the restructuring that we're involved with will help us get at that, but make no mistake about it, there are certain functions that we're aware of, HR. The ability of the city to hire people, but also put people in the right spots and assess them. We don't have a performance appraisal.
Sure.
We don't have a training budget, things along those lines. Those things have existed for a long, long time, and it's not that we haven't been trying to get at them in 7.5 months. It's that it's going to take some doing, but the number one thing is to recognize that once we're in bankruptcy, that we have to come up with a plan of reorganization, we'll also come up with a budgeting plan to get at critical fixes: purchasing, procurement, finance, information technology, bus, police, fire, EMT, health, safety, and welfare. Those issues are front and center.
Right. If we get into the bankruptcy, there are two constituencies I think that see themselves as very vulnerable.
Right.
One is retirees and their pensions.
Right.
The other is the DIA, which
Right.
is afraid that they might have to sell part of their collection, or even worse things might happen to them. Tell me what you would say to a pensioner about why they are vulnerable and why they should be worried or why they shouldn't, and then talk about the museum.
Well, the first thing I say to pensioners is, I'm sorry, but these issues have been coming our way for a long, long time. You've lived in the city. Many of the pensioners live in the city. You've heard the stories for decades about issues going on with pension funds, loans, borrowings, all that kind of thing. There are consequences to that behavior, and those all occurred prior to the 7.5 months ago that I got here.
Sure.
So I'm very sensitive to the issue.
But are those consequences? Is it fair that those consequences visit on the pensioners themselves, who are not at fault?
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if it's not necessarily fair, because there's a human crisis here.
Right.
Okay, and in a sense, they are, the pensioners themselves, forget their management and leadership.
Right.
The pensioners themselves are innocent bystanders, okay, to conduct that occurred. But when you talk about what has to be done, we don't have the money. The money that was there many times, many years ago, Mayor Archer spoke about this over a decade ago, could have saved it. So I'm not trying to attribute blame to individual pensioners for what happened, because that's a hardship.
Right.
But I'm trying to say I'm just the messenger for what happened here, and my responsibility is to deal with it. So the first thing I would say is I'm sorry, because that's an unfortunate circumstance, but nobody up here had anything to do with it. The second thing I would say is we're dealing with the unfunded portion of your pension.
Right.
And different people are saying there are different functions that go into that calculation, but it has to be adjusted, because if we don't, let me give you the real tragedy. In the next 10 to 13 years, if we don't do anything, pensions are gone completely.
They would go away.
They go away
Completely.
And think about this. That means the pensioner now is victimizing the 30, 40, 50-year-old workers. Is that fair? Right. That's your compatriot. Okay, that's a current employee versus a pensioner. Would you want to deprive them of the opportunity, because the younger people will be left without anything?
Right.
So if we don't do anything, if we ignore it, that's going to result in a victimization of the current generation for past generations. So that's not fair. The other thing I would say is we're trying to have a dialogue about what that means. There has to be adjustments. I said when I first came in, everything's on the table. I said I wanted to understand the issues fully so we could be fair. There was one point that's been reported in the paper about my sacrosanct comment on June 10th, but what I also said at that meeting was that everything's on the table and we haven't reached any conclusions, because that week we were doing the examination. So we completed that examination on June 14th, and even then we said we want to have a discussion, because we want to make sure everybody agrees to what has to be done. We're the ones that asked the unions at first to represent them. They said no. We went to court and filed a motion saying we want a retiree committee. Everybody talks about legal fees. You talked before. A group of professionals that we're paying are the attorneys and the financial advisors for the retiree committee.
Right.
So the city is paying, okay, to represent. So I'm doing everything we can do to provide them with representation. That representation is objective. We are definitely negotiating.
Hope will result in.
We're trying to result in a consensual resolution to finally deal with this issue.
Yeah. And what about the museum?
DIA is a heavy lift. I've said again and again and again for the past 7 months, please come to me with a solution. I haven't gotten it.
No, they, even in my paper on Sunday, had some ideas that they put out about ways to leverage some money.
We understand there are efforts being made, and great efforts being made by members of the judiciary, as a matter of fact, and we are hopeful that they will yield an outcome that will allow us to address the issue. But I say again, and I've tried to be very clear about this issue, at some level between now and the end of the year, I've got to call the ball on this, and we have to present a plan.
You got to come up with some.
I got to come up with a solution, and frankly, I don't mean to put too fine a point on it, but everybody says don't touch DIA and don't touch pensions. Okay?
Can you do both without?
One of my professors in college had an acronym called TANSTAFL. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
Right.
Okay. Do you want people to be able to look at art, We have 66,000
Is that really the
pieces.
fair?
Well, let
balance
me
here?
do this.
We've
There are
got about 30
35,000.
seconds.
Okay,
so-
35,000 are unencumbered by the city. 3,500 have been shown, and 400 are primary. We can't touch any of that to assist with this effort. Is that reasonable? Is that reasonable? Not one piece. That seems to me to be an extreme position to take.
Yeah. Quickly, this time next year, you still here? Or are we back to
No, this
Mayor?
time next year, I'm hopeful that we've resolved the balance sheet issues, we've dealt with the financial crisis, and I'm on my way home.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
You're very welcome.
That's our show for today. Thanks for watching. We'd love to hear what you thought about today's program. So to connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. New episodes of American Black Journal will return in the new year. In the meantime, you can always view past episodes on demand at AmericanBlackJournal.org. That's AmericanBlackJournal.org. We'll see you next time.
Eric wants to know.
What does DTE Energy do to make Michigan a better place?
Rodney can tell you.
We do a lot, like youth education and employment programs. We fund over 500 jobs for youth all across the state. Many are neighborhood improvement projects just like this.
It's incredible.
Wow, that is fantastic. So this is like a paint by number, this whole thing, right? Communities are such great places, aren't they?
They sure are.
I love the siding. Measure once, cut twice, right? DTE Energy. Know your own power.
When I grow up,
I want to be an architectural engineer.
Registered nurse.
In the law enforcement,
a computer scientist.
a successful person.
Give Michigan's children the chance to aim high with quality early education.